playing his own deck, Black-Green Delirium, versus Justin Uppal's Mardu Vehicles. Black-Green Delirium, the big version of Delirium. I know sometimes we saw our last team open, their standard player, Ben Stark, playing a aggro Delirium sort of deck. Dryads, Scroungers. This is Ishkana's.
This is one of the matchups that I think that Brennan's pretty happy to be battling.
If that's true, you know, it's disappointing for Brennan that there's only one Mardu player here on day 2.
Certainly so.
All right, Koepke winning the die roll will be on the play. He starts off with a fetch land into Deathrite Shaman. Now, Deathrite Shaman, back when it was printed and returned to Ravnica, really changed the Delver Mirrors.
Yes.
And I assume it's one of the best things you can be doing on turn 1 in a Delver Mirror.
Oh yeah, kill that one on sight.
And Tannen will do just that. Lightning Bolt at the ready.
In particular, Tannen's build being 4 Gurmag Angler, 2 Snapcaster Mage, the impact of Deathrite Shaman will be felt throughout the game. If that gets any activations, it really hurts Tannen's deck.
Sure, well, cards right, like Daze, Spell Pierce, when your opponent's plussing up mana on you, all the cards become worse.
Yeah, that's another huge problem.
Koepke, turn 2, will Brainstorm.
And when you're playing all the same creatures as your opponent, sometimes it can be difficult to turn a profitable combat, and Deathrite Shaman can just make your opponent lose life without needing to get involved in combat.
All right, we get our first look over at a hand. Tannen Grace is getting hit by Gitaxian Probe. He has a Wasteland and 2 fetches, Brainstorm, Force of Will, and a Deathrite Shaman of his own. So you actually see last turn he had the option between Deathrite Shaman and Lightning Bolt, and it wasn't even a choice. It was Lightning Bolt.
Yep. And certainly when your opponent already has their own Deathrite Shaman. It's also true that if Koepke has a Daze, dazing the Deathrite Shaman is very significant value. Dazing the Lightning Bolt is more questionable value.
Sure. Koepke will draw and then use a fetch land to complete the Brainstorm. Now on Tannen's side, a hand of fetch land, Brainstorm, Force of Will, Deathrite Shaman. It seems like there's a lot of pressure in that hand to get that Brainstorm to resolve. Force of Will is not a great card. I'm not really sure land 4 is a good card either.
Yeah, the 4th land's usually not great. He does have, you know, these Snapcaster Mages. He is trying to get to 3 mana. Sometimes 4 to play around Daze a reasonable amount of the time. The Force of Will is going to be really bad. The Wasteland might be great, might be not so great. As you see, Koepke hit his 2nd land drop here. He also Brainstormed and then Gitaxian Probe, suggesting that he was very happy with a lot of the cards he's already seen.
So Koepke cracked a fetch land, then cast Ponder. He drew Deathrite Shaman off the Ponder. Now, one thing on the negative side, there was a Cabal Therapy in those top 3 cards, which Devin's going to draw at some point here.
Well, Devin's seen Tannen's hand, though the Brainstorm is going to make that one more difficult to convert.
Right. A look over there, Todd Stevens, the modern player, also able to discuss with Tannen Grace. Tannen will waste away the Underground Sea. And what's interesting here is how Tannen's mana has worked out. He wanted to fetch for a Volcanic Island, but Volcanic Island is Tannen Grace's only red source. So because of that, if he wastes here, he can't actually make his Deathrite Shaman. You know, there's no, I guess, Badlands or Taiga or something he could have fetched up that let him Deathrite and Bolt.
Yeah, with the Volcanic Island on the battlefield, I think Wastelanding there makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of spells that Koepke can only cast with the Underground Sea on the table. It puts him off tempo a little bit, but I don't think it's a huge cost. And if this works out, which you feel like it might when Koepke leads on Brainstorm without making a land drop, the upside's very high.
Yeah, so Koepke's going to make that play on his turn. Tannen in response will Brainstorm of his own. And now Koepke's going to fight over Tannen's Brainstorm with Force of Will.
Yikes.
Well, this is what Koepke saw his hand, right? And he's like, man, your hand needs a Brainstorm.
Yeah.
And Koepke willing to give away that 2-for-1 to keep Tannen away from it.
And Tannen still has that Force Will of his own, but I believe he missed on blue card for his draw step.
Yeah, we know his hand is is 2 fetch lands, a Deathrite Shaman, a Force of Will, and 1 unknown card. So he would have only had 1 chance to add that blue card. Will he force back? He's got one in hand. He's actually holding on this, so maybe he does have the blue card.
Could be that it's just a very high-impact blue card, like Snapcaster Mage, or maybe
Yeah.
even a Ponder, which he'd be pretty all right having.
Looks like it was Thought Scour. And he actually decides not to pitch Thought Scour to it. He'll just let his Brainstorm get countered. Now Devin's Brainstorm resolves. Now, a lot of times Delver players will say in a Delvermere, Force of Will is a liability instead of a strength.
Yeah. Card disadvantage when all the cards in your deck are very similar quality or just the same card as the cards in your opponent's deck. Not really where you want to be.
Is this counterspell, do you think, worth 2 cards from Devin by getting Tannen's Brainstorm?
When you see Tannen's hand there, you know, the ability to fix his hand matters a lot. But I think what was actually going on there is Devin is missing on that black source. He really wanted to be able to dig those 3 cards. And if Tannen, you know, brainstorms into Daze, that's very bad for Koepke.
Sure. Tannen untaps, uses his fetch land to get Underground Sea, and then makes Deathrite Shaman, leaving up that Thought Scour still in his hand. Go back over to Koepke. Has Lightning Bolt. And his own Deathrite. And another Wasteland. A lot of strength on Koepke's side.
Lightning Bolt Wasteland's a pretty good 1-2 punch.
So he'll do that. You're right, though, about the colored mana here. Koepke's hand is Deathrite Shaman Cabal Therapy. You see he'll Wasteland away the Underground Sea. Koepke has no more cards he can cast right now.
Yeah, you see Tannen not casting that Thought Scour. He already has a pretty full graveyard. That's a card that can pitch to Force of Will and not very impactful to resolve. If he just Thought Scours and draws a land, that's pretty poor from this position.
Yeah, Tannen another Brainstorm, so he'll cast that. Picks up some cards, decides what to put back. Looks like he has Force of Will, Daze, Ponder, another land. So those counter spells here, does he keep them or does he ship them? The Daze and the Force.
The Daze looks like it's going to be relatively difficult to convert. You have to be at least somewhat worried about a True Name Nemesis when you don't have a clock on the battlefield.
That makes sense.
But if the Daze is bad, that's the card you can pitch to Force. It really depends on the quality of the other cards. Brainstorming is always a very high context thing. He has these 2 Ponders. Those definitely keep those.
Yeah, those aren't going anywhere. It looks like he kept Daze, Force, Ponder, put the other cards back. So he does want the counter magic.
And this is an interesting thing about the evolution of Delver over time. Currently, you know, neither of these lists are Stifle lists.
Yeah, that's true.
That's a pretty dicey spot to cast Brainstorm and have your fetch land. You know, Koepke just stifles you from there.
He's showing no respect for Stifle in his play.
And you just don't have to anymore.
As a Delver player, does that make you want to play Teamer again? Just teach him a lesson?
I want to stifle both of these guys.
Maybe like, you guys aren't even playing around the card. I need to let me show you what Legacy used to be like.
Let me show you how it feels to control 0 permanence for 5 turns.
Tannen will use that fetch land to complete his Brainstorm and then cast a Ponder. Ponder's going to draw him, it looks like a Snapcaster Mage. Back over to Koepke, another Deathrite Shaman, no plays at all. And this what feels like a Delver matchup to me. When I remember Delvermeres of old, it was all about mess up the other guy's lands and then win, then you'll win. And that's what Tannen's done.
Yeah, you stop the other player from playing the game. There's a lot of discussion about turn 1 Delver, blind flip Delver. That's a 7-turn clock. What you need to do is stop your opponent from playing the game, and that's exactly what Tannen has executed.
Yeah, it's casting Ponder here, and look, he already has another Wasteland in his hand.
If you can't beat a 7-turn clock, you shouldn't be playing Magic.
It's one of the reasons, though, that Deathrite Shaman messed all that up, right? When you're trying to take all your opponent's lands, what's this Deathrite Shaman card about?
Yeah, you got to kill that one.
Yeah. If you don't, then the whole that whole strategy's out the window.
Yeah, Tannen even has Fatal Push as sort of his 5th Lightning Bolt / answer to Shaman. It kills Tarmogoyf as well.
First game in, that's the modern match between Baugh and Stevens. Todd Stevens with Eldrazi Tron, up 1-0. Tannen continues with the land destruction, takes Volcanic Island.
And the Wasteland there, it's nice. It doesn't take Koepke off color, but it makes it way easier for Tannen to leverage Daze.
All right, Koepke's going to get a look at Tannen's hand. It is Thought Scour, Force of Will, Lightning Bolt, and Daze. Tannen's done a great job of controlling mana, but he doesn't actually have a threat yet.
Yeah, that is really what he needs to find from here.
And Kevin's hand, Devin's hand gets even worse here. So he's now sitting on Cabal Therapy, 2 copies of Deathrite Shaman. Those are all uncastable. And then the last card, Force of Will.
Yeah. Good combination with those 3 black cards.
Yeah, right. A bad card in the matchup and just another uncastable.
Yeah.
But until Tannen presents a threat, it's not that big of a deal. Here's Thought Scour. It mills Snapcaster Mage in a land. Tannen draws. Draws Spell Pierce. Draws Wasteland. Okay. I like that he's taking all Devin's lands. That's great.
That's good.
He needs to win at some point.
Yeah, he'll figure that out.
Yeah, all right. Let's get your last permanent.
Here we go. Now this is magic.
True Name Nemesis, the draw from Devin. That's
turns on Force of Will.
Which, there we go. Oh, land. Okay, and Deathrite Shaman. I mean, Tannen's got the Lightning Bolt. They both know it.
See, this would be a really nice spot for Stifle.
Actually, wait. Koepke might just therapy away that Lightning Bolt.
Yeah,
why
that's
not?
A reasonable line here. Tannen has picked up a Spell Pierce. He still has Daze.
Okay, I mean, we gotta start somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he'll cast Cabal Therapy. So Tannen can hard cast Daze, hard cast Spell Pierce. I assume one of those will happen. He's not gonna let this resolve. And yeah, 2 mana. He'll censor it.
All right, here we go.
And then you compare censor to Daze, right? They don't make counterspell. They don't make counterspells like they used to. I mean,
No.
I know censor cycles, but
hey, I'm just gonna hold my tongue on that one. I'm very grateful for censor.
Censor's a great card, and that's like even the more messed up part.
Yes.
Is that censor's good.
Yes. And on Tannen's turn, he produced that Deathrite Shaman, but Koepke's able to cast one of his own.
Well, some bad news here for Devin Koepke's team. Both his teammates have lost. Justin Uppal losing game 1 to Brendan DeCandio. And now Tannen finds the clock he was looking for. He made a Deathrite Shaman last turn, bolted Devin's Shaman, and now Tannen makes Gurmag Angler.
Mm-hmm. And Koepke's on a 2-turn clock now.
Well, Koepke has Force of Will and True Name Nemesis. I wonder if he has to make that play here. Except he doesn't know about the second Daze in Tannen's hand. I think
The Deathrite Shaman's on tap too. He can just cast Spell Pierce.
Yeah, it's just like not going to work for a number of reasons. Devin probably goes for it anyway and then just gets blown out.
Yeah, just letting your opponent have a 5/5 when you're on 12.
There you go. How would you like to counter this, Tannen? He has Force of Will, Daze, and Spell Pierce.
It's a good spot for Spell Pierce, I think.
Yeah. All right, so nope. Grace will keep.
We're no longer
Gurmag
in the
Angler.
spot where Tannen needs to like Spell Pierce a Ponder. Devin just doesn't have time to mess around with that stuff anymore.
Devin goes for Deathrite Shaman. Tannen, here's a show of strength. Tannen could Daze.
He's got a 5/5.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can have that. Oh, no. He's going to take all his cards. Daze it. And Devin is going to scoop that up. So a clean sweep for Team Dapper. Grace, Stevens, and DeCandio all take their game 1s.
Mm-hmm. And now I think this is kind of bad news for Koepke. It looks on the surface like Tannen's upgrade in the sideboard is more significant than Devin's.
All right, so when you mentioned that, what is it that makes Tannen's sideboard better here?
So the uncounterability of Abrupt Decay is really strong when you're fighting these Deathrite Shaman wars, over Delver of Secrets, Young Pyromancer.
Right.
The Golgari Charm can also clean up Young Pyromancer entirely, which there are 3 Pyromancers in Koepke's deck. The big find here is Leovold Emissary of Trust. If that enters the battlefield, it's just huge upside for Tannen.
Yeah, that card seems great. Now, does something like Liliana the Last Hope have any play here? It's a very good answer to, well, I guess.
It doesn't kill Shaman,
Yeah.
but it kills Young Pyromancer and Delver of Secrets. I think it's well positioned against Koepke's. It's less good against Tannen's deck, but Tannen's the one that has it.
Right, so I do see there's a lot to like there. Mm-hmm. I like the uncounterable Abrupt Decay. Thoughtseize is probably out here.
Yeah. The Delver Mirror tends to go particularly long. Discard spells at the top deck, not ideal. In Legacy, you have a bit more control over how that influences your game. You can brainstorm, you can ponder, you can solve these problems. And, there's spots where you do want to have Thoughtseize. So it's a powerful enough effect, not necessarily into it. And we go over to Koepke's side. He has a Vendilion Click, which is reasonable enough, instant speed answer. Grim Lavamancer, which can manage Delvers, Deathrite Shamans. Diabolic Edict as a clean answer to Gurmag Angler. Dark Blast is actually good against Koepke's deck, but kind of weak against Tannen's. He only has Delver of Secrets and technically Snapcaster Mage that get hit by it.
Now,
so it's kind of
Baleful
medium.
is good, right?
Yeah, Baleful Strix is great. It'll get involved with anything in combat, replace itself. And Pyroblast is a pretty solid one in the Delver mirror. Kills Delver, fights Counter Wars, counters Brainstorm. Quite powerful card. There's an argument for engineered explosives if you find yourself in a position where they have 2 1-drops and you don't.
So Tannen Grace, the most veteran player over on Team Dapper. Maybe recently he's been the lowest profile player of their team, but 32-year-old from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, does have an SCG Open top 8 to his name. Also a professional Hearthstone commentator, so a lot of experience across different strategy games, largely involved in poker as well.
Yeah. Former state champion at golf, high school level
I did
golf.
not know that.
He talks about.
I am terrible at golf.
He's a pretty humble guy. He talks about how he used to golf. I'm actually learning about this championship now.
So he's one of those guys like, yeah, I golfed some. And
Maybe
like,
it's
you
humble.
won the high school state championship. That means you're good.
It could be humility. It could be that it's 20 years ago and he forgot. You know what?
Well, it's the classiness of their team. You know, I learned a couple months ago. You know, Todd Stevens was a walk-on D1 athlete.
Yep.
You know. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But all of them right now up a game. They are both. Neither team here has dropped a round. Both of them are 3-0 on Sunday.
Awesome. That's going to give here.
Yeah, and right now it looks like it's going to go one way.
Maybe Jacob Baugh will assemble an infinite combo and still end up drawing the match. That has been known to happen.
So for Star City Games, we, as you may have known on pre-releases, we like to mix things up a bit with our creature collections. So when the Hour of Devastation hits in July, the Owl of Devastation is going to hit the shores on this Creature Collections playmat. This is exclusive to participating stores. So you can find out more about this at starcitygames.com/pre-release.
It's really excellent art on this mat.
That is a very big owl.
Reminiscent of Rhyme Feather Owl.
Yeah.
From
I like
Cold Snap.
in the picture in the front. There's these Leonins, these cats on the shore just running away.
Yeah.
You know how the tides have turned.
A bird preying on cats. I do like that imagery. Giant birds are just cool too.
Well, was it large birds? They're not really, eagles aren't scared of cats. No, it's the other way around. If you have a small enough cat, a hawk will prey on it.
Yeah, my sister has very small dogs. Apparently, they periodically have a bird problem.
Gotta watch out, like if it. Yeah, gotta make sure. Can't let the dog out by itself. You know, the eagles in the area might carry it off. It's a real thing. Devin Koepke on the play, turn 1 Volcanic Island into Delver of Secrets. And I know you're gonna tell me, this is not what Delver mirrors are about. It's nice.
That thing's gonna die.
It's just right. No, he's gonna flip it off days, and then he's gonna run away with the game. That's how you win. It's not. Lightning bolts on Delver.
In Legacy, you have to keep your Delvers in because your deck needs to be very lean, and you're gonna get wastelanded a lot. In Modern, you board them out. Like, Delver is actually pretty bad in the mirror.
Yeah. I guess, right, in Legacy, you are a 18-land deck, so you can't really board out your 1-mana cards.
Yeah.
Because you're playing 18 land.
Some of them are wastelands. They can't all even cast Delver.
4 of them are really spells. Like now I'm going to board in my 3-drops. I'm like, no, you're not.
Yeah.
But it's a really good 3-drop. You're not going to cast that. Like, it is a Ponder from Koepke. We're going to try to reassemble here. You see he's boarded in a Dark Blast, so he'll play Underground Sea, leaves up that Dark Blast, and passes the turn.
And Tannen's deck is composed like a lot of decks that do contain Young Pyromancer. Unclear whether or not Devin knows that's absent from Grace's list.
Did he see any green cards game 1? Tannen's going to waste away the Underground
There's
Sea.
nothing to see. The main deck is just Shaman activations.
So he might think this is a Grixis mirror.
Yeah.
Devin will cast Gitaxian Pro, both players just on 1 land. So from Tannen Grace, we see 3 Brainstorms, Thought Scour, Lightning Bolt, and Gurmag Angler. Well, he's going to have no problems casting the Angler, but he doesn't have a second land just yet.
The problem is he needs a second land, he needs to be a black source. He has the combo of Brainstorm and Thought Scour.
This is where you want to see Koepke like have a Daze in hand and then wasteland Tannen and be like, ah, gotcha.
Yeah. I like games that functionally end on turn 3.
Here's a Ponder from Devin. Because that interaction's possible, is there a chance that Tannen wants to be brainstorming in response to this ponder.
It's certainly possible. Yeah. Koepke not only found this wasteland, but there's another one on top of his deck.
I think so. Just flips it off the top deck. This is what I drew on the ponder.
Yeah.
Get your land.
There's another spot where Stifle actually was really important in Delvermere, is it protects you against their wasteland.
Tannen did find a land on this brainstorm, but it's not a fetch land. It's actually a dual land, which means the next brainstorm is going to hit it. And on top of that, it means he's brainstorm locked for a turn. You could
And Grace will not be able to find a basic land because these decks do not play basic lands because basic lands don't cast enough of your spells.
You only play like 6 lands that make mana. You can't afford a basic.
And Grace is going to get wastelanded again before too long.
Now, Devin, outside of the wasteland on top of his deck, doesn't have any lands of his own.
Now, Tannen could potentially make a really heads-up play and Thought Scour Koepke. The odds that he's just keeping wasteland on top are pretty low, but I mean, that would be huge here.
Does Koepke's play represent any sort of knowledge about the next 2 cards? I mean, if he saw top 3 and one of them was wasteland, this was the play, right? If it was wasteland garbage, he was probably still in.
I would be extremely surprised if that's Tannen's play. In fact, he has the option to ponder to find more lands, which is quite powerful.
Yeah. He might, I mean, if he's going to scour someone, it would be himself. His next card down isn't a land. And correct me if I'm wrong here, hitting mana-producing lands seems like the only thing that matters. It's the most important thing in the game right now.
Yeah, Tannen needs to find some more lands that make mana.
All right, so Koepke's going to make Young Pyromancer here. He could have wasted Tannen again, but instead he's going for a creature-based plan. He does have a Gitaxian Probe in hand, so there's value here, but I am interested in this decision.
Suppose he figures he sees Tannen's hand. Tannen is just left with cantrips mostly, from what he knows. There's some more cards that were drawn. Yeah, but if Tannen just spends this turn casting cantrips to find more lands, wastelanding is still very impactful in the following turn, and this gives him some board presence.
Tannen did Thought Scour himself. Koepke goes for a Gitaxian Probe. So we see Brainstorm, Brainstorm, Ponder, Lightning Bolt, Gurmag Angler, Spell Pierce.
And if Tannen is able to find a fetch land or a volcanic island off the top of his deck, Lightning Bolt on the Pyromancer cast Gurmag Angler will be a very nice sequence of events for him.
So I'm wondering, Devin Koepke, going to use a Tannen Grace token. Yeah, Tannen throws that one out there. Those guys work for him. All right, so go back over to Tannen Grace. Going to try to hit that next land drop. Plenty of cantrips, Ponder and Brainstorm.
He really wants to ponder while he has the time to do that. He'd love to get the Gurmag Angler on the table, but...
Here's Ponder. Yeah, I mean, one fetch land and he can do that, right? And he does see a fetch land in the top 3 here. Probably means he's keeping them.
Something he has to watch out for. His deck only plays 2 volcanic islands, no other red sources.
And one's in the graveyard.
Getting a black source here and casting the Angler is strong. He would love to get the Pyromancer off the table, though.
Right, so by getting the black source, right, he can't get a second volcanic hit by that wasteland that's on board.
He's thinking about this. He pulled the volcanic to the front of the deck, but this is a really tough decision.
He's going to get the volcanic island.
So if he casts the bolt, Koepke's seen the Angler. It's possible that Koepke goes for wasteland on the Underground Sea.
So let's say this volcanic island gets wastelanded. Now, Tannen can still make red mana with Deathrite Shamans.
Yep.
But that's it. What other red cards is he stranding, other than the remaining 2 Lightning Bolts?
In the 75, Lightning Bolt is actually the only red card.
Okay, and 2 of them are in the yard, so it's not that bad. This is a neat play here. Koepke brainstorms. Tannen actually picks up the Underground Sea to daze it, and Koepke just pays using Wasteland. I actually think this was really smart by Tannen. It means Koepke's not wasting it.
Yeah. So be able to go into the following turn with 2 lands.
Yeah.
For sure has the Underground Sea, so be able to cast the Gurmag Angler.
It looks like he gave away a card, but I think the more I'm looking at this play, the more I like it.
That's what you call a tempo play.
Picking up my own land is a tempo play?
These are tempo decks. It's negative tempo, but it's a tempo play. Tempo play just means that it manages tempo.
I think with that definition, everything could be a tempo play.
Well, yeah, I'm all about loose definitions.
All right. Turn 1 Dark Ritual, that's a big tempo play.
Another wasteland.
Gross. Gross.
See
Koepke plays another one.
That's a tempo play.
That's a great tempo play. Tannen's going to draw Toxic Deluge. Yeah, never cast in that one. But he will cast a Gurmag Angler for one, or at least he'll hope to. He's going to delve away 6 cards. He's really just hoping Devin doesn't daze this.
Yep.
These Delver Mirrors are just wastelands and dazes. Man,
it's
they're
beautiful.
They're just what it's about.
This is just good, honest magic.
Tannen's got some nice-looking cards that he may or may not ever cast.
Now we play the game of is my 5/5 good enough against your live spells?
Remember, Tannen, no more red-producing lands in his deck. And how about this? Dismember from Koepke. That's huge.
Here's an answer to that question about whether the 5/5 is good enough.
Yeah, let's take care of that last land while we're at it. And cast a Deathrite Shaman. All right. You know, last game Tannen left Koepke with no permanence. It's only fair that Koepke returns the favor.
This is what it's all about.
They're doing this without Stifle. With Stifle, you can do this way more often.
Yeah, it's nice.
It's like, ooh, if you play a basic, I'm going to waste it. If you play a fetch land, I'm going to Stifle it. You don't get mana.
Letting your opponent have mana is horrible.
No, I remember the back when we used to see Temur Devil like that. The really, the tech was when you'd see Miracles be like, basic island, basic plains. You'd be like, what is this?
In fact, Basic Plains is among the most powerful cards in Legacy against a Temur Delver deck.
They play basic plains, you're like, oh man, that's so good.
I don't care if it was a top or a vial. Basic Plains is a land you did not want to see.
And Devin going to work 3 mana to 0. Young Pyromancer, Gataxian Probe.
Let me see those spells that you're never going to cast.
He's still got 2 Brainstorms and a Ponder that he never had the opportunity to use. And Devin, down to 8. A lot of that is on doing multiple probes and dismembers, but that's not going to matter at all here.
Yeah. Grace only has 2 more Lightning Bolts in his deck that he literally cannot cast without first assembling a Deathrite Shaman.
So Tannen is down to 16. Deathrite Shaman was used for mana that turn. And Jan's got about 1 or 2 turns to just top deck a land here. And that's a Delver of Secrets. That's not going to work. I was curious whether or not Tannen's deck was able to cut some number of the Delvers just because of how much better he is at playing control, but it looks like the answer is no.
Yeah, in the mirror, you really want to get the Force of Wills out. Frequently, some number of the Dazes will be leaving the deck as well. Spell Pierce also has a fluctuating quality. So you have so many cards that you want to cut before you cut the Delver. And we're going to a game 3 here.
Okay. Correction here on the scoreboard. So while Tevin Koepke forced game 3, Todd Stevens, a 2-0 winner in Modern over Jacob Baugh, gives the first match over to the dapper gentleman on the left. And so Todd wins. Tannen and Brennan both have a game. No more room for error on the card hoarder side of things.
And Tannen will be on the play, which is huge in these tempo mirrors.
So I am curious about that. On play versus draw. This is so much of a tempo matchup. Does that actually affect how you board?
It certainly can. The question of how many dazes you want in this matchup, and in a number of matchups, play draw, that's very much a question.
On the play, it's 4, right? On the play, this card's great.
Generally, yes, I would say 4.
But on the draw, in a Delver Mirror, maybe the answer is lower. We did see Tannen was on the draw that game. He didn't have much daze. He didn't actually draw a daze that game.
There's some differences in philosophy. There's some Delver players that literally board 2 dazes out whenever they're on the draw.
Okay.
My personal approach involves more matchup-based. So, for example, I want 0 dazes against elves ever.
Right.
But Daze is frequently live in the mirror here. Given that there's no Stifles anymore, the Daze is going to be less impactful more often.
Yeah, so with these Daze, Stifle, Wasteland cards, it's the kind of thing that if you have one of them, it's not good, but if you have 3 of them, it's great. So because you don't play Stifles, the Dazes get worse because it's like they lost their friends.
On the play, you know, dazing a Deathrite Shaman can be very significant if you don't have that removal spell.
Sure.
It loses quality over time unless you're able to wasteland them very aggressively.
All right, so for Devin Koepke, evening things up with Grixis Delver, the 24-year-old from Okawville, Illinois, really the last year was his first big year here on the SCG Tour. 4 open top 8s, including an open win that season. Real interesting guy. Things you may not know about him. Owns a donkey, didn't have the internet until he was 21. So
I feel like those two things are more related than they would seem on the surface.
Well, yeah, how about the last part? Real good in arm wrestling.
I've watched Devin arm wrestle before. There was a judge at one of the events that thought that for sure he could take him, and
I wouldn't arm wrestle Devin. No way.
No, couldn't pay me to do
lose
that.
What I'm impressed of is
Devin won by a lot.
If you don't have the internet until you're 21, getting good at Magic is really difficult. Like
you see, it's a tabletop game that you can play.
That's true.
On any hard surface.
Well, and it's not just for the, you can practice online. And a lot of the top players in the game you see log huge numbers of online hours practicing. But even just things like deck lists, metagames, one of the biggest things, if you want to talk about legacy, the internet changed legacy.
Yes.
Before the internet was big, people played a lot of bad decks in Legacy. Like, remember when, like, Eva Green used to be a thing, and, Nick Fitz, and all these, like, decks that are, Sui Black.
You were about to get so much hate.
I'm going to get so much hate, everyone. Just bring it. Bring it. You know what you should do? You should take your Evergreen deck to our next Legacy event and win it, and then I will shut up. All right?
You'll be eating crow when I
will on air apologize.
When I attack you with my 3 rogue elephants.
if you win the open with rogue elephants, I will on air apologize. And okay, I'll even decide myself. People used to think High Tide was a great deck. The internet kind of proved us wrong on that one too. Okay. Like, I don't really think that anymore. But yeah, I think, people used to talk about, there's that Canadian Threshold deck that was pretty good. And I don't, we got by because without the internet, we didn't realize just how much better it was than some of the other decks people would play.
Yeah. There's long been these positions where people say, my deck has Chalice of the Void. My deck has Blood Moon. I'm so good against Delver. It has non-basic lands and 1-mana spells. It's like, yes, it also has Dazes, Spell Pierce, and Force of Wills. A number of things that look good on paper end up being the opposite in function.
I miss Aggro Loam being good. That was a sweet deck. Seismic Assault.
Seismic Assault Life from the Loam is a sweet combo.
Apparently it's not as good as just like lands.
Yeah.
Lands is kind of doing everything Aggro Loam did, but does it better. Turns out.
It has more messed up cards. You ever read the Tabernacle at Pendrell Vale?
Yeah, it doesn't even tap for mana. What kind of land is that?
It does if there's a Riftstone Portal in your graveyard.
I like that tech in the deck. It's probably wrong, but I like it. I'm
neat.
putting one in my lands list because I like sweet plays.
I got all these Mazeths.
I got Mazeths and Dark Depths and Tabernacles. I'm like, hey, man, they're all making mana, okay? All right, game 3 underway. Tan and Grace on the play. Both players on Tannen on 6 cards, actually. Devin on 7.
Your opponent has no plays on turn 1. It's very tempting to wasteland them.
Well, we saw that last game. Devin just really inflicting a lot of damage with wastelands.
Mm-hmm.
I got on. How about Sea Stompy? That was a sweet deck.
Yeah, Sea Stompy is nice. I played Dragon Stompy At a Grand Prix once.
Well, Dragon Stompy kind of just turned into Mono Red Sneak Attack.
Yeah,
right?
I think Mono Red Sneak Attack is dramatically better than the Rakdos Pit Dragon pile.
Right, but that's like the same style of deck.
Yeah.
So if someone says Dragon Stompy's bad, I'm like, no, it just evolved. But then if we go
There's
like
no evolution of Sea Stompy.
like, oh, how about that deck where he played Sea Drake?
Turns out that 4/3 flyer with downside was not where you wanted to be.
All right, it's a Ponder from Koepke and a Thought Scour from Tannen. Both players with Volcanic Islands. Now, Grace did have a Wasteland in hand, and he'll go ahead and take care of Devin's land, and he passes. And, you know, once again, I think we have a situation where Tannen has a Deathrite Shaman, but because of this awkwardness where he's got...
Oh, sounds like the match is over.
Okay, so they're here. It looks... Yeah. I think we
So
may have had,
I think,
we had Brennan DeCandio winning game number 2, so the players are going to lay down the cards.
I had a brief look at both hands. It looked like a lot of black spells,
Yeah,
no black mana sources.
Tannen's like, guess we'll never know how this one ended.
Shucks.
You know, that is a thing when looking at Tannen's deck. Volcanic Island is a really awkward land in Tannen's build.
Yeah, he just has the 4 Lightning Bolts, and the upside of having Lightning Bolt in your deck is very high. But Volcanic Island is functionally very similar to Basic Island in a lot of situations, and the deck does not play Basic Island because it's not good enough. If